How can a data center infrastructure management DCIM software company grow revenue? So you're in the infrastructure management software business for data centers, a category that's been around for well over a decade at this point, and you're looking to grow revenue. So the first place to start is to figure out where you've been most successful in the past. When we look at your reviews, when we look at your testimonials, when we look at your case studies, what kind of clients onboard the smoothest? What have the best path from initial value to intended value to extended value? What kind of clients love spending time with your account managers, with your customer success managers? Which are most profitable, which are most strategically aligned with what your company does today, and what's on the near future roadmap 6, 12, 18 months down the road. So this is a combination that almost certainly is going to require input from across your full go-to-market team. It may start with a conversation between your account managers and your product managers, but almost certainly you'll also need to get input from your sales team. If you have channel partners, for sure you'll need input from your CAMs and your CACs, your channel account managers and channel account consultants, or whatever you call these roles within your company. For sure, you're going to need input from and work together with marketing on messaging, product marketing, everything that's being done with lead generation and sales cycle acceleration. And for sure, you will also need executive sponsors involved. At the minimum, depending on your company size, this would be like a chief commercial or chief revenue officer. Could be, depending on your company size, your CEO and CFO may be involved as well. So when it comes to growing revenue, so we know where you've been most successful. That influences how you define your ideal client profile, who's on your target account list, how you segment up these target accounts in terms of buyer personas and prioritizing those buyer personas, all the basic go-to-market playbook kind of stuff that everyone in this space is likely doing. And if you think it's novel, probably look around, because in many cases, you're probably, if you're just getting started with this, maybe catching up to competitors in this space that have been doing well with this for the better part of a decade or so. With that in mind, to grow revenue, there's a couple of different ways that you can grow revenue. And a lot of lessons can be learned from looking at a combination of the digital infrastructure, the data center ecosystem, but also looking at SaaS companies, because a lot of your business model is probably closer to that of a SaaS company than a co-location or hyperscale data center operator, even though the co-location and hyperscale operators are probably your best kinds of clients. Maybe edge data centers, perhaps it's modular data centers or enterprise end user kind of data centers. But either way, we need to understand exactly what is the job that you're doing for those kinds of clients and how that should factor into your overall playbook. And then we need to understand, what path are you taking for revenue growth? Are you looking to expand existing accounts, or are you looking to generate new accounts? And this is where a chief revenue officer sits down and has discussions and objectives and key results and KPIs, key performance indicators, and SMART goals that will be specific to the account managers, and goals and OKRs and KPIs that are specific to the account executives. And depending on how you've structured your sales team, perhaps the SDRs and the BDRs, the sales development reps or business development reps, depending on how you've structured this within your company. And again, if there's channel partnerships, they'll be a factor as well in some of these planning. So are you looking to just expand revenue of existing accounts? Because if that's the case, that's going to be something that you'll almost certainly have your customer success and account managers working on it. You could also involve some resources from your marketing team if you want to do customer marketing. This is where you're taking a concerted effort to educate your existing clients about other offerings that you have that they may not be aware of, or at least may not be aware of the benefits. For a small to mid-sized company in this space, I am a huge fan of using webinars and email marketing, especially webinars, to get your clients together and with a product manager, with a account manager, and bringing some representative case studies from clients that have been using this expanded feature set that they may not be using today. So this is where you basically shine a spotlight on clients that have been most successful with your software in the form of a webinar panel, live case study, whatever you want to call it. Of course, record it and repurpose it a dozen different ways so you can get more mileage out of this. But you're basically looking to cross-pollinate the success of some of your early adopters with the rest of your client base. So that's a really great playbook for being able to grow revenue, expand revenue, expansion revenue among your existing client base. In terms of growing revenue with your net new prospects, with new potential clients, that's a completely different kind of job role, a completely different kind of playbook. And again, this gets a little more complex if you have both a direct sales force and channel partners. With channel partners, obviously the ramp time is going to be considerably longer in most cases to educate and build trust with those partners, because they're not working just for your company 40 hours a week. They have multiple initiatives, multiple balls in the air at once, but they have an established client base. So there's definitely pros and cons. But this is, again, the argument for why, when it comes to growing this kind of revenue, you're typically splitting this up into 2 or 3 different teams that work on 2 or 3 different kinds of revenue growth. So let's talk about the net new. That would be direct sales coming organically into your company. So in this particular case, we want to make sure that we really understand the types of companies that do best with your software and the individual stakeholders, the individual buyer personas that are involved in the research and decision-making process with your companies. And from there, we build out a buyer persona. From the buyer persona, we build out an educational content calendar and events calendar that allows our client-facing team to show up early and often in the right places at the right time for the right people, and most of all in the right context, so that your team are seen as the go-to experts on anything and everything having to do with infrastructure management software for data centers. So this is going to involve, potentially, at the risk of getting really meta, webinars, live streams, podcasts, and a variety of different formats around that. In some cases, they could be educational, product agnostic, company agnostic kind of thought leadership webinars. In some cases, you may bring some of your most successful clients to these webinars and moderate panels. That can be a super powerful way to educate and build trust and infuse some social proof in this. You could have more consideration to decision stage kind of webinars where you're doing product demos to people that have attended the earlier stage webinars or raised their hand and wanted some sales contact, and the deals seem to kind of stalled and not moving forward. There's a variety of ways to do this, but I'm incredibly a huge fan for this kind of business of investing very, very aggressively in a multi-pronged, multifaceted webinar program that allows you to educate and build trust with multiple stakeholders from multiple companies simultaneously, and look and see who shows up, what their interactions look like, which ones you pass to sales, which ones you keep inviting to your webinar program and nurture and with over time. But it's super important to remember that, especially when we're talking about selling to IT professionals, they're more sales allergic than ever. Like Gartner did research recently and found that 83% of a typical buyer's journey is now over before vendor contact, before someone wants to talk with someone from a sales team. And this isn't just the early adopters. This is pretty much everyone. McKinsey did some similar kind of research and found 70 to 80% of decision makers now prefer a digital journey. So we can't keep showing up the same way we've been showing up when these buyer preferences have changed so much over the past 5 or 10 years. It's a combination of baby boomers retiring and next generation, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, kind of replacing this. It's more digitally leaning. It's people during the first few years of the 2020s spending a ton of time working from home, the big work from home, return to office debate kind of thing that's going on. And then on top of that, there are parts of the digital infrastructure data center industry that are continuing to kick and scream about a very old school playbook because they believe their buyers are different. The reality is, for an infrastructure management software company, your buyers are buying SaaS from different kinds of SaaS companies in very different ways than they would buy real estate. Very, very different ways. So the reality is, for you to try to advance an argument that the CTOs or the NOC managers or whoever you're selling to are going to buy from you in an old school way from 10 years ago when they buy all other SaaS in a very modern self-propelled buyer's journey just doesn't make a lot of sense. So if you want to be able to grow revenue, we need to meet them where they actually are, not where we'd like them to be, living in an era that would require a DeLorean and a flux capacitor from Back to the Future to go back in a time machine and pretend that you're still selling 10 years ago. No. In order for this to work, we need to have extreme empathy about who they are, what they care about, their biggest goals and challenges. And we need to meet them where they are as educational resources, as teachers, consultants, trusted advisors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders. And the better job we can do that, the more likely it is that we're going to have a revenue growth engine that provides value and keeps our team competitive. So that's the net new. We also talked about the account managers and the customer marketing as the approach for the land and expand, the expansion revenue. And we also talked about the revenue growth opportunity that you can deploy if you have a strong channel partnership motion. So those are some of the key considerations that I would be thinking about for a data center infrastructure management software company that wants to grow its revenue.